We have an active shooter at the church and PD's on scene saying the building is also on fire.
I need manpower up here ASAP. I have people trapped in the building. Repeat, people trapped in the building.
I need help in here, please. I'm here to IC. I need help in here.
I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't know if we were going to have to get down because we couldn't see anybody.
There is a couple additional bodies that we've discovered in the church. So that makes our total victim count up to 4. 2 have been shot as a result, or have been shot, 2 of the deceased. The suspect was neutralized at 10:33:44 in the parking lot of that church.
I joined the church 38 years ago in that building, and now it's gone.
You never think it's going to happen here.
This kind of violence doesn't happen in our community.
I'm completely distraught. This was a quiet neighborhood. You know, we've never seen anything like this.
Shocking moments from Grand Blanc, Michigan. At least 4 people are now dead and 8 wounded after a man led a deadly attack on a Church of Latter-day Saints building this morning, right in the middle of their service. First responders were at the scene within 30 seconds, sending out these calls for help.
We have an active shooter at the church and PD's on scene saying the building is also on fire.
I need manpower up here ASAP. I have people trapped in the building. Repeat, people trapped in the building.
I need help in here, please. I'm here to IC. I need help in here.
First, police say the gunman crashed into the building. Then he started shooting and set the church on fire. As more and more first responders rushed to the scene, the people inside during worship tried to figure out what was happening.
I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't know if we were going to have to get down because we couldn't see anybody to worship my Savior Jesus Christ, and I didn't expect this to happen, of course, and I've lost friends in there.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
And some of my little primary children that I teach on Sundays. I joined the church 38 years ago in that building, and now it's gone.
Police say the man behind it all was 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford. He was killed by police at the scene, ending the danger, but leaving the community scarred. Our lead anchor, Kaylee Marentet, was in Grand Blanc tonight, gathering the latest from police, and actually spoke to a neighbor of Sanford.
We learned some important information from police tonight. First, we learned that 2 bodies were found inside of the church as investigators have been combing through it. However, the Grand Blanc Township Chief says that number could rise because they haven't searched the entire church yet. We also learned that the FBI is leading the charge in this case now, investigating it as a targeted act of violence. We also learned that a motive is still being investigated yet, and authorities aren't sure how the suspect was tied to the church. Again, the suspect is 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford. He lives in Burton, Michigan, and police were actually searching his house earlier tonight, looking for evidence and search warrants. I got the chance to speak to one of his neighbors about how he knew Sanford.
The guy that done it, that I heard about, was he used to come up here and plow my driveway, and he'd plow people's driveways, and I bought firewood from him. And he seemed like a nice guy, man. I mean, I had no problem with him. I mean, you never think it's going to happen here. You've heard it happening in different places, but, you know, close to home. Of course, you've seen that on TV before where they say that. Well, it's close to home, but you never know what's going to happen.
Investigators are still trying to learn more about the fire and how it started. We learned at a press conference tonight that this is being investigated as an arson, and they believe Sanford lit the church on fire and acted alone. Here's what we heard from officials tonight.
The fire started basically the suspect. All indications on this investigation are the suspect used an accelerant of some sort, we believe gasoline, and lit the church on fire.
Was it an IED that he may have used?
There are, at this point, I'm not going to comment on IEDs. I will confirm that there were some suspected explosive devices that were located. But as far as using them to initiate the blaze, I can't say that.
The supervisor of the township spoke earlier today in a press conference saying that they are not used to this kind of violence in the area, and they are offering community services throughout the week. We will learn more about the next update on social media. As soon as we get more details, we'll be sure to let you know. In Grand Blanc Township, Michigan, I'm Kaylee Marentet, WTOL 11.
All right, Kaylee, thank you. Also breaking right now, Michigan State Police say they've received multiple other credible bomb threats. Our cameras caught a large presence of police and fire personnel at a separate church in Grand Blanc earlier this evening. State police say those came in at several other church locations after the incident this morning, but couldn't say the exact churches or which denominations they are.
I'd also like to acknowledge the heroism of not only the first responders, but the people who were inside that church at the time. They were shielding the children who were also present within the church, moving them to safety. Just hundreds of people just practicing their faith. Just extreme courage, brave, and that's the type of community that we are.
In times of tragedy, there are often stories of people who rise to the occasion. And police say this community did everything it could to protect the most vulnerable people inside the church.
I saw 4 tarps at the time. I don't know what's left there now, but 4 body tarps. It was right up the street from my house, probably 300 yards. Police everywhere, 50, 100 police cops, ambulances, fire trucks everywhere.
I'm completely distraught. This was a quiet neighborhood. You know, we've never seen anything like this.
And you just heard people in Michigan who are right now hurting after this incident. Neighbors saw the gruesome scene, and those who live in the area say this just doesn't happen in Grand Blanc. And tonight, President Donald Trump is sending a message on social media. He writes he's been briefed on the situation and pledged his administration will keep the public informed. He also says the country will do what it always does, pray for the victims and their families. And then he calls for the, quote, end of the epidemic of violence in our country. Make sure you have the WTOL 11 News app to stay informed as we learn new information on this tragic situation. We'll send alerts with breaking news right to your phone, and you can watch any news conference updates live as they happen. Let's get things over to John to look at our forecast. John?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. The sunny and warm weather continuing into the upcoming week. It's going to have a little hint of summer in the air with those temperatures still in the lower 80s. Our normal high is 73. We are going to be well above average for a good chunk of the week. Now, there could be a little bit of fog to contend with. It is going to be on the patchy side with most schools on time tomorrow morning. But do keep in mind there could be some minor travel delays into your Monday. The afternoon, sunny and warm. How about a high temperature of 83 degrees? Winds are going to be fairly calm out of the north, but there could be a minor lake breeze that does develop into the evening. The hour-by-hour forecast lifts those highs up right around 83. Locations south and west could even climb up to 84 or 85, and the Lake Erie shores just a touch cooler for your Monday. The next 4 days, we're going to stay warm through Tuesday, but I'm going to preview the impacts of a lake breeze on our midweek weather. That's coming up in your full 10-day forecast.
All right, John, we'll see you then. A 48-year-old Bryan man is dead after a crash on State Route 637 in Paulding County. Troopers say a 17-year-old from Oakwood rear-ended a car that was slowing to a turn on County Road 138. He swerved left, sideswiped the car, and hit a motorcycle head-on. The motorcyclist, Lance Boldenbaugh, died at the scene. The teen driver had minor injuries. It's now been nearly a year since 24-year-old Zane Disher was shot and killed in an apartment in South Toledo. His killer is now serving time behind bars, but for his family, the loss is still fresh. Tonight, his family and friends gathered to celebrate Zane's 25th birthday and reminisce. Dominique O'Neill joins us in studio after going to this event. Dom, what can you tell us about it?
Well, Michael, Disher's family and friends tell me time hasn't made the loss any easier. Hundreds showed up to show their support, and they tell me they still miss him so much every day.
I mean, this is the worst tragedy that a family can endure, for him to be murdered like he was.
That's Zane's aunt, Melissa Disher, one of the many who came out to remember him Sunday evening.
Zane was my baby before my babies. He meant the world to everybody here. I mean, he was tremendously loved by all of us, and losing him, our family will never be the same.
Which makes this birthday celebration all the more bitter. Zane's aunt wasn't the only family member there. His mom and dad were also present. They were too heartbroken to speak on camera. However, Zane's grandmother, Tana Disher, shared how seeing the crowns of the support meant to her.
Makes it happy because I know he was well loved, and I know they'll continue to remember him forever.
A family and friends left to cope with this loss. Daryl Rusher, who was Zane's best friend, he says he grew up across the street from Zane when they were kids.
He's the best good-hearted person you could ever find in the world. He's my best friend, and it's been hard without him.
Rusher says it has been challenging coping with the loss of his best friend.
It meant the world to me. My best friend. Never be another one like him.
Even Zane's elementary school principal at Burroughs Elementary, John Preston, came to support the family and reminisce about his impact.
But he was a student that really had a very big concern for his community and doing things in the community to make it a better place.
It's a loss that cannot be replaced, and family, friends, and the community alike are just trying to pick up the pieces.
Not very easy right now. Mom and Dad are distraught, the brothers, niece, everybody were just break down. I break down still every day over it.
Disher's mother, Brenda, shared off camera that Zane started this towing business about 5 years ago with the hopes of building something for his children. His father now runs it to help keep that dream alive. Reporting in studio, Dominique O'Neill, WTOL 11.
All right, thank you, Dom. Downtown Toledo turned pink this morning as thousands laced up for the Race for the Cure. From seasoned runners to first-timers, the crowd came together with one powerful goal.
And a mild start to the work week, but the east breeze picks up Tuesday and into Wednesday. I'll show you how that impacts our temperature forecast coming up next.
Welcome back in. Forecasters are now keeping track of another storm in the Atlantic. Tropical storm Imelda is the 9th named storm of this Atlantic hurricane season. As of Sunday, that's today, it has winds of 40 miles per hour. The storm is about 370 miles southeast of Cape Canaveral, Florida, and forecasters say it could become a hurricane. Imelda may bring strong winds, high surf, and flooding in southern parts of the U.S., specifically Florida. Meteorologist John Birchfield's been tracking what that's going to look like for people in that area. John, give us a little bit more of a debrief.
Yeah, Michael, the storm track is going to be a very close call, but thankfully, based on the latest data, the worst of the impacts are going to miss the Carolinas and Georgia as this storm skirts off to the east. Right now, Imelda situated near the Bahamas. Latest data is still showing 40-mile-per-hour wind speeds, which is high enough to be classified as a tropical storm. So here's the latest on the storm track. It is going to be moving to the north, could cause some impacts to coastal Florida, but then it's going to slide to the east as intensification to a Category 1 hurricane is likely. And in order order to be considered a hurricane, it would need 74-mile-an-hour winds. Now, I want to show you a plot of all the different computer models, and they're starting to come into some agreement or consensus that this one is going to miss the Carolinas and move off to the east, and that is certainly a positive news forecast, whereas some data last week was showing a landfall in the United States. We are not expecting that to occur as this storm moves east. The strongest winds stay out to sea, well offshore. Here's a look at Hurricane Umberto. Eyes on the tropics on this one as well. It's still a Category 4. You can see the eye of that storm and it gusts to 165. This certainly has that textbook hurricane structure, although that one is not going to be making landfall either. And we're looking at a storm track that is going to maintain that major hurricane status before racing off to the east eventually later on this week. Here at home, we have high pressure to the north of us, and whenever there is a Canadian high across the Great Lakes, that usually means an east breeze, and we're going to be feeling that east breeze midweek. Tomorrow, though, very mild, 83. Other than a little morning fog, it is going to be a great weather day. 83 in the Toledo Metro. Could even get a little warmer south and west with 85 possible in Henry, Putnam, and Hancock counties. Staying mild Tuesday, but then by Wednesday, there's that east breeze as a result of the high to the north of us. Temperature-wise, we are only going to be in the lower 70s, so that's the biggest impact that wind direction has. Both of those tropical cyclones staying well offshore of the Atlantic seaboard. However, that Canadian high to the north of us is going to cause an easterly, northeasterly wind direction off of Lake Erie. Here's a snapshot of wind speeds Wednesday afternoon. Sustained winds over 20 miles an hour possible with an isolated 30-mile-an-hour gusts not out of the question. Now, one of the impacts that we are monitoring is the potential for an increased risk of fires due to the ongoing drought and also the dry breeze. This is a recipe for an increased fire risk. So please avoid outdoor burning. And if you do see something that may indicate a fire, please report it, as this is going to be a weather risk that we're monitoring mainly Wednesday. Staying chilly with that lake breeze Thursday. By Friday, the wind shifts direction. Going to be a great night for Big Board Friday. And the 10-day into the first weekend of October, staying remarkably mild. We have another couple days in the 80s and really no signs of any sort of cool down. Any hopes of rainfall, going to have to wait until next Tuesday. I feel like summer's still not ready to give up quite yet, Michael.
I know, I love it. We're getting that late summer. It's always good. But, you know, like you said, it causes that fog sometimes. I'm sure many kids watching, if you are watching, are wondering right now, are we going to get a fog delay tomorrow?
Oh, man, that's a tough call. You know, last week we had a lot of delays, even some closings, and fog was more of a big issue. And that's also because we actually had the moisture from the rainfall. Sure. Well, most of that moisture is long gone. Not going to be a big issue. And I think it's almost midnight. So if you do have school tomorrow, I think it's time to go to bed.
Mr. Birchfield says it's time to do your homework, kids.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, John. Well, more than 2,000 people flooded the streets of downtown Toledo this morning for the 32nd annual Susan G. Komen Northwest Ohio Race for the Cure. From first-time racers to runners of more than 18 years, everyone came together for the fight against breast cancer. Reporter Faith Zahowski has the story.
Go! I was diagnosed in 2007, and 5 days later was the race. So I've been at every one since then.
For breast cancer survivors like Rainey Robinson, Sunday was more than just another weekend morning in downtown Toledo. It was about support and hope. The 32nd annual Susan G. Komen Northwest Ohio Race for the Cure brought together first-time racers.
This is the first time I've ever wore pink.
And longtime veterans of the race.
It's been 18 years for me since I was diagnosed, and I've had a wonderful support system. The hat is a staple. I had a friend make it when I was first diagnosed, and it's the only day it's worn, so this hat will be here every year I am.
My hat today shows that I support my friends that have lost their beautiful hair, and today I'm supporting my friends.
1 in 8 women in the United States will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime. This year's race raised more than $200,000 for advocacy, research, and action. That money doesn't just support those with a diagnosis, but it also makes early detection available for all.
And if it hadn't been for watching, paying attention to it when I was diagnosed, the self-exam never would have been done. I wouldn't be standing here.
But no matter what title was worn Sunday morning, Everyone came together for a common goal, to raise hope and lend support to anyone fighting their toughest battle.
But they're my best friends. I'm here with them today. This is the first time I've ever been here, and guess what? I'm feeling it.
And if you're in there walking the race and you're struggling, there's people behind you that'll come up and give you a tap and tell you to keep on going with it. You got this. So everybody does help everybody out here.
To see this and to see the continued caring and support means a lot more, honestly, than it's hard to explain. It means everything. And for me, it means my life.
Reporting in downtown Toledo, Faith Sahowski, WTOL 11.
All right, when we return, Major League Baseball's postseason is set. We'll tell you where the Guardians, Tigers, and Reds are. Plus, the Lions and Browns played each other today. We recap that game. Coming up next in sports. Sports brought to you by Jim White Honda. Welcome back. Today was the final day of the Major League Baseball regular season, and with that, the postseason is set. We had not one, not two, but all three teams from Ohio and Michigan make the postseason this year. The Detroit Tigers, Cleveland Guardians, and Cincinnati Reds will all have a shot at the World Series this season. First time that has ever happened. The Cleveland Guardians made it by having one of the most up and down seasons in Major League Baseball history, on their way to winning the AL Central Division title for the second straight year. The Tigers qualified for the AL wildcard spot after having a dominating first half of the season and a 12-game lead in the AL Central in August, only to collapse at the end and end up as the 6th seed for the second straight year. And just like last year, Detroit and Cleveland will face each other in the postseason. This is only the second time in baseball history these two franchises have faced each other in the playoffs. First time, of course, being last year. First game of their series set for Tuesday at 1 o'clock. And don't forget, it's Sunday, and this week the NFL got treated to a rare regional matchup, Lions versus Browns. First time these two teams have played since 2021. The Browns were coming off last week's improbable win over the Packers, who the Lions lost to at the beginning of the season. But the transitive property doesn't apply to Cleveland. Couldn't conjure up that same magic, and Detroit beat the Browns 34-10. The Lions improved to 3-1 this season, while Cleveland drops to 1-3. And in college football, the Toledo Rockets got their groove back versus Akron Saturday. If you remember, the team lost to a previously winless Western Michigan team 14-13. Then Toledo came home for homecoming and scored 35 points in the first half. Ended up winning 45-3. The Rockets improved to 3-2 on the season. And like we said, the loss to Western still have all of their goals in front of them.
And you want to go out and have a good showing. You know, your routine's more consistent when you're here and when you're at home. You know, you're not driving all over God's creation to figure out where you're going to be in your next stop and that kind of stuff. And, you know, less moving parts and moving distractions.
Meanwhile, for Bowling Green, they had their MAC opener versus Ohio down in Athens Saturday and could not get back in the win column. The offense struggled with 3 interceptions and a fumble. It was still a one-possession game in the fourth quarter, but the Falcons ended up losing 35-20. BG is now 2-3 overall. They have a bye week next weekend and then get ready for Toledo on October 11th.
What's disappointing is that you see glimpses of what we can be, but then the mistakes, the turnovers, they hurt us. You know, we created some but didn't capitalize on some of them. They capitalized on theirs. We just could not get out of our own way at times.
And check this out. A new episode of Chasing the Game is dropping soon. This week I caught up with Anthony Wayne volleyball coach Chrissy Graven. Here's a short snippet of our conversation. How soon did you know about the Pikes, like when they were coming up? Did you know from like junior high, you know, who they were, and did you know how good they were going to be?
Yeah, they definitely played at a different level. You know, as much as we saw in 7th and 8th grade, they were a different type of player in the gym. So we definitely noticed that, and you know, we say that we see the same things. You know, when we go watch our junior high teams play, it's important to support and see that talent coming through and plan for it, honestly. So yeah.
Yeah, Charlie Gardner's another one. We talked in the summer. She had just committed to Bowling Green.
Yes.
How cool is it to? I mean, not just the Pikes, but you have her again. You know, she would be the best player on a lot of teams, but you know, she's another option for you guys. What's it like having her on your roster?
She's a dynamic player. She's a player that, you know, I think after teams play us, they're like, man, she's a nice player because she plays so big, you know, front and back row. It takes up a lot of space. And she came in this off season. We had a tournament in the summer, and she was explosive. I mean, she was swinging harder than we ever seen. We were just blown away by, you know, the work that she put in the off season and came in July. And she's been performing well day in and day out.
You can catch the full conversation on WTOL 11+, which you can download for free on Roku TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. You can also watch and listen to episodes on YouTube and on Spotify. For now, that's all for sports.